Yes. All right. Well, that was ugly. All right. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Harbor of Hope. Now, you've heard us talk about them before. Harbor of Hope is, of course, a foster agency in the North Texas area. And, it's the goal of the agency to provide positive opportunities to all people it interacts with. Children should have the opportunity to heal and engage in meaningful activities within the community and their families. Now, Harbor of Hope strives to make a safe environment for families and children and will take advantage of positive opportunities to support permanency goals and the overall well-being of the agency's clients. Harbor of Hope child care services and treatment services to male and female children from birth through 17 and up to 22 years old if they meet specific eligibility criteria for continued stay in the foster care program. It is the agency's goal that foster families create strong working relationships with all members of the treatment team. With that approach in mind, Harbor of Hope intends to create an environment for children that promotes healing and a healthy transition to permanency. Now, if you want to find out more about Harbor of Hope on this podcast, you can go to episode 013 with Jamie Steiner, who is the executive director, and hear about their mission, hear more about what they do. She is an amazing woman, and we can't say enough about her. She has supported this podcast, and we support her in turn. And if you want to contact them directly by phone, you can contact them at area code 817-304-8207, or you can drop by the office and visit them at 100 West Oak Street, Suite 110 in Denton, Texas, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you're not in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you can always contact them, and they can probably help you with resources in your area. You can also visit them at theharborofhope.org, and you can also go to streetwarriorradio.com/Harbor of Hope and find out more about their mission statement, vision, etc., contact information, and there's a link to the episode with Ms. Steiner. Also, this episode is brought to you by Top Notch Tactics, security consulting, physical security, LEO-owned, veteran-owned, great guys. They are the supplier of this podcast's audio equipment, and we appreciate them greatly for that. For more information on them, you can contact us at info@streetwarriorradio.com, and we can funnel you to the right resources. Also, last and definitely least, Amazon click-through. Go to the website, streetwarriorradio.com, and on the left-hand column of the page at the bottom, you're going to see a picture that says Amazon.com. If you click on that silly little bastard, it'll take you to Amazon. If you're already signed into Amazon, great. You don't have to do anything. It stays on your account, but it funnels you through our storefront. And you can just do your regular Amazon shopping as if you normally would, except when you make a purchase, a portion of that, a small portion, a teeny little bitty piece of that gets kicked back by Amazon to the podcast as a thank you to us for funneling you to them to do business. And those proceeds are used directly to fund the podcast. They pay for things like website fees, podcast storage fees, software fees, emergency equipment needs, etc. Big Bo and I do not see any of that into our pockets. That is important to note. All right. So, this episode of the podcast, boys and girls, we welcome back our very first guest. That's right. Our very first guest. That was Deputy Hookem of the Deputy Hookem and Deputy Bookem social media cop duo. Now, he's Deputy Hookem by day, but by night he's Forensic, who is a rap artist. And he has a new album out, Order vs. Chaos, which you can find on Spotify. And you just Google it and you can find it. It's definitely on Spotify because I downloaded it. It is his sophomore album, and we're happy to have him back, as always. This is Street Warrior Radio episode 033 with your hosts Big Bo and me, JC. Tonight I am taking it solo, but with me is going to be Deputy Hookem, and aka Forensic, and this was my interview with him, and we cover a variety of things like his new album, what's been going on with him and Deputy Bookham, and yeah, enjoy.
I'm gonna get shot, armed or not. People getting shot everywhere, man.
1199. Government should be afraid of the people. Not the people should be afraid of the government.
Oh, shot fired, officer down, shot fired, officer down. Got a city officer down, shot fired.
People out here, they are angry.
Shot fired, 3 officers hit.
The laws don't matter, then y'all don't matter. Honestly, I say abolish the police. I believe in community policing because nobody can police their community like their community can.
I don't know where he's at. He's in that building, or he's shot from that building.
They embrace drunk driving. They embrace bullying. This is bullying to the highest degree.
We got one deputy down inside the apartment. I'm not getting anything from him. All of us have been hit at least once.
What's the future of policing? What would make you comfortable?
If they all just decided to get hit by semi trucks at the same time and died.
Take your hands out your pocket. Who's going on?
All right, so what you just heard was a song called Interlude, and it's on my guest's new album, Order versus Chaos. Forensic, aka Deputy Hookem, aka Forensic, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, man. It's good to be back.
So, this new album, what's it been for you? What's this process been to create a whole new album and to get it out there while juggling the fact that you're a full-time law enforcement officer and you've got all the commitments with humanizing the badge and everything else you have going on? What kind of task was this for you?
You know, man, honestly, I've been beating myself up over it for months. I think when I did the first album, there was really no expectations. There was no bar. There was no following. There was none of that. And, the first album did as well as it did. And people are constantly hitting you up like, hey, when are you going to do another one? When are you going to do more? And I think I kind of dwelled on that for too long, on how to make this album bigger and better and greater and badder. And,
right.
That to me, I think is the most stressful part. And I'm always my own worst enemy when it comes to music. So, I kind of delayed on it, and I would record a little stuff here and record a little stuff there. And then, like you said, doing other stuff with HTB or with, the Hookem and Bookham stuff, different sponsor deals that we're working with, and then the job as well. But finally, man, I just kicked into gear. I said, you know what, I need to get this shit done. Yeah. And I put it into high gear, and it came together, and I could not be happier with the result.
So I've listened to it several times now, and it's a more intense album, I think, more intense record than the first one. Would you agree with that?
100%, and that was my motivation behind the whole thing.
So a lot of it is very emboldened behind the ideals of, at least this is what I took from it. A lot of it's very emboldened behind the sacrifice and the stress and the that hardened thin blue line kind of theme there. What was your mindset in kind of preparing? Did you have this is going to be kind of a themed album where everything kind of relates to one thing, or is it just the individual songs is in your writing process? Is that how that just spoke to you? Is just what came out of you, or did you kind of have a plan?
Well, I think with a sophomore album, I think you get a little more emboldened. Yeah. And, with the first album, obviously I didn't know how people are going to take that. He's a cop, he's a rapper, he's a comedian. What the hell does he do? Right. And, it worked so well. Like I said before, I mean, that first album, within 2 weeks, it was in the top 10 on iTunes and the top 10 on Amazon.
Which is incredible.
Right. Absolutely mind-blowing. And, you know, it was great and it was good. And there was the PTSD side of things with songs like Saving a Hero. And then there was the normal side of things like Cali Step and What More.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when I started working on this one, things changed a little bit too. I mean, society, since Human has come out, you know, things didn't really improve too much with what was going on when Human was released.
Right.
And now it's kind of, you go through this mindset of, I'm upset that cops are going through what they're going through. And now it's like, I'm pissed. And I feel like when I wrote Blue Line Soldiers,
mm-hmm.
that song felt so damn good
Yeah.
to write and to record and to listen to. And it was so empowering. And I know that people felt that when they heard it. And I think that honestly set the tone. Like, and I knew when I would tell people, hey, this next album is going to like stand by, because I'm not holding back my opinions. I'm not holding back my anger and aggression and my true support for this law enforcement family.
Right.
And I hope that people listening to it get that.
Yeah, I think that's evident, and you can even tell in the tone of your voice. So, as you, in comparison to the first album, which is a good album, and it's not that it lacks passion or anything. It definitely has tons of that, and you can tell that you pour your heart out into it. But this one just has that extra. It just has like an extra kick to it. Like there's an anger behind it, and there's a sadness behind it, and there's stress behind it, but there's also underlying all of that. It seems to me like there's a lot of pride coming out of it, and you can tell that in your voice. Your voice sounds more confident and more aggressive in this album. And for me, I really dug that. Like that stood out to me, and it captured me like right off the bat. Which is and like we talked about offline a little bit, the song "Send Me," that song. I mean, it's the second track on the record, but that like got me like right off the bat.
Right. Yeah, and you know, and I had some debates about putting that song first. Deputy Bookham loves that song. That's his favorite song when we were listening to, you know, stuff from the studio when I had it. He was, and he'll tell you, I mean, he was like, "This is it. This is your Wolf Hunter. For this album. This is your number one track." And I'm like, man, I don't know. It's kind of down. It's
you kind of have a couple. You have more than just one. But to me,
I do.
On this album for sure.
Yeah, and you know, I had kind of some reservations, and then when I got the idea about the bagpipes, I'm going to hit them where it hurts and hit them where it feels right away, and they're going to be sucked into the whole album, and hopefully that worked out.
Yeah, I think it did. Talk to me a little bit about Adam's song.
So, this is definitely one that I knew I was going to get questions about because it's kind of it's a different topic for me.
Yeah.
So, the song Adam's Song is basically a story about a man who's dating a woman who the woman turns her back on the man, and he kind of realizes that he doesn't need that person to move on and to get on with his life. I had a good friend in high school named Adam Iverson. Mm-hmm. Who was a very good friend of mine, and he kind of got into some bad ways, hung out with the wrong people, started doing some dumb stuff. I went the law enforcement path when I started being an explorer right out of high school. Mm-hmm. He kind of went the drugs, drinking, you know, not healthy path.
Right.
And Adam ended up taking his own life when he was 19.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and Adam loved rock music. I mean, that dude would listen to, I mean, you name it, rock groups from like old rock groups, like before we were born rock groups. Right. He just loved it. And I guess he wrote lyrics. I didn't know he did that. But after he died, his sister approached me with a sheet of paper that had some lyrics on it that was found in his room. And a couple friends and I kind of put it together. And of course I was doing music at the time, but right. I wasn't in law enforcement really. And we kind of put together a ghetto little song. And part of that was I wrote a second verse to this song. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was cool, but it was like a low budget thing, and it kind of worked, and his family liked it. It was, you know, the cool thing to do.
Sure.
And going through my lyrics, I still had his lyrics written down, and I was like, you know what, I want to do something with this song. So the end result is Adam actually wrote the first verse of that song and the chorus.
Oh, wow.
I wrote the second verse. And I brought in a friend of mine locally here that surprised everyone with the fact that he can sing. And he helped me on the chorus. And I absolutely, honestly love that track. I mean, it's way different than anything I've ever done, which I think sometimes as an artist you have to step outside of that zone
Sure, absolutely.
to do those things.
Yeah.
But I love it, man. Every time I think of it, it's like, and then also at the same time, it does relate back to law enforcement because of relationship issues that we as cops go through sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think there's any of us that well, there might be a few, but I think most of us can probably relate to that. I know that I can, looking back at my own experiences and relationship issues and all that. It's a good song. Do you, when you recorded it, or when you think about that song, is there a level of emotion behind it that's different from the other stuff?
Yeah, I think so. And I think honestly, like, I mean, it just brings up a whole different kind of emotional realm that I've never really stepped into.
Yeah.
Not only having a personal tie to it, but feeling like I'm doing my friend justice in lyrics that he wrote and
Sure.
able to get it out to people. I don't even know if it was about a real girl. To be honest with you, I have no clue.
I don't know that it matters. I don't know that it matters
right.
if it was or not.
Yeah. And I also feel like I brought, maybe because of the closeness to me, the lyrics on that track are very well done, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The ones that I wrote. Obviously, his lyrics are his.
Sure.
But when I wrote mine, I feel like I connected a lot of dots, and I'm really, really proud of that track.
And I don't really. Okay, so this I don't know, and I wanted to ask you this. Do you do? I'm sure you do. Do you perform? You perform live, right? You have gigs and stuff.
Yeah, I have. I haven't done a ton of them.
Yeah.
The last one I did was in Detroit last year.
Okay. Was this song part of your set list at all?
No.
No. Do you plan on making it so at any point?
Yeah. I think. I mean, that was the last time I performed. It was before this album was even conceived. But there's some plans going forward with some public stuff, and I definitely think with the following that I have, I'm going to have to include that kind of stuff in my set.
Well, the reason I ask is because, so at one point in my life, I was a musician. I was a bass player in a rock band and sang backup vocals and all that. But when we played live, there was a couple songs that I sang, which is why I'm not in a band anymore. Mostly they were cover songs. They were songs. I mean, the songs that I sang, I had a few that we wrote ourselves that I participated in that capacity, but most of the lyrics and stuff came from our lead singer. But there were certain songs that I connected to in a certain way because they reminded me of certain either points in my life, and it's the same thing music does for everybody, right? That's why it's so powerful.
Sure.
But there were certain songs, like when I would get up on stage and I was getting ready to sing, like I would get an extra bit of nervousness from, because whether I listened to those songs or I performed those songs, like if I was thinking too much about what I was saying, it would get to me emotionally,
Right.
And I have to wonder, like, is there any apprehension about performing it live? Like, are you able to? Because I know a lot of musicians that are able to just disconnect. They can just perform it and move on, and that's it. Some people can't, and I'm one of those people that can't. I can't. There's certain emotions I just can't. I can't like shake off, and ignore.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of my strengths as an artist is emotion does me justice.
Yeah.
And when I feel a song, or when I'm angry, or when I'm upset, or whatever, I feel like I put a lot more into that song, and I can't imagine performing a song like that live because I haven't done it yet.
Right.
But I can imagine with the right audience who knows me and the right setting, I think I would use that emotion in a very, very positive way.
Sure. The track before that, Blue Line Soldiers, when we talk about emotion, right? And because I mentioned before, there's some anger behind this, and there's some resolute pride also behind it. Now, when you were on the podcast the first time, I remember us talking briefly about, how law enforcement should interact with the community and how, kind of the outlook and things like that. And at that time, there was a positive conclusion to that conversation, right?
Right.
But based on this album, it doesn't feel like that continued. And if it did or it didn't, if it didn't, I completely agree with you, because if you look at the way it's going, while there was some hope there for a little bit, like, okay, maybe things were going to get better for us.
Sure.
I mean, today in Illinois, Brookhaven, Illinois, 2 more officers, shots fired call, they're dead.
Right.
You know, and it's obviously it's a hazard of the job. Obviously, it's going to happen. But gun violence against police officers is again the leading cause of deaths of cops. Here we are again, right?
Right.
And it seems like while it's normally a cycle, you know, it fluctuates. And this year it may be this, or this year it may be that. Those little portions of those little intermittent cycles of where gun violence against law enforcement officers, and I say gun violence, that's a stupid term, but homicidal violence against police officers, it seems like that little cycle, that little circle of is just getting shorter and shorter, where that's becoming more the norm,
Right.
which it was at one point in our history, you know, but I feel like the attitude or the atmosphere behind it is different. So that being said, is some of that an influence on this album? The fact that violence towards us has not changed, because assaults against police officers are at an all-time high, statistically speaking.
Right.
I mean, if you look at LEOCA, the FBI statistic, for people who know what that is, it's the FBI's report, law enforcement officers killed or wounded in the line of duty, and some of those numbers are shocking.
Yeah.
Like, you really don't think about it. Like, you hear about an officer getting killed in the news, but you don't often hear about, on a national scale, the number of officers that are assaulted, shot, stabbed, beat, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It's really crazy, and I don't think people have an understanding of that. With this album, with that undertone of anger behind it, is this a way to, like, kind of get that frustration out?
Yeah, I think so. I think my music has always been not solely about me.
Right.
I think my music has always been about law enforcement as a whole, and helping law enforcement as a whole, and speaking for law enforcement as a whole. From songs like Saving a Hero on the first album,
Mm-hmm.
I myself have never dealt with any PTSD or suicidal ideations.
Right.
But a lot of cops have.
Yes.
And I use my music as a means of speaking for people who feel like they can't speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I think you listen into that song and other songs on the album as well, like Mr. Thin Blue Line.
Yes.
You know, I call out, you know, BLM, you know, thanks, you know, basically, thank you, BLM, for giving me the motivation to do this. And I think that's a big theme with this entire album. Not in the sense of that I've given up hope with working with the community, because obviously we wouldn't be doing this job if we gave up that hope.
Sure.
However, I think that enough is enough sometimes, and if nobody else is going to back up cops, I'm going to be the person that does. And if I do that in my music, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Well, I think that if, you know, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people out there that support law enforcement, right?
100%, yes.
And that's important, and they're the backbone of the spirit of us being able to move forward and go to work every day and do what we do.
Yes.
And there's people out there that hate us, obviously, and they always will, and that's never going to change.
Sure. Yep.
And there's people out there that are so angry and miserable with their lives that they're willing to hurt others, including this representation of authority.
Right.
We're an easy target, right, for some people.
Sure. And I don't think that people who, you know, like you said, people who are going through things who assault law enforcement officers, I don't think that comes from a hatred of cops. I think that's either people in crisis or people who are not in the right state of mind, people whose lives are imploding.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many factors. It's not every cop who's killed is ambushed.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely no.
And I think that, I mean, it's always been a hazard of the job. It always will be a hazard of the job. I think the major problem is that we are seeing it become normal to make cops villains.
Right.
And I think that's fueling a lot of this stuff against law enforcement. Obviously, there are millions upon millions, tens of millions of Americans who support law enforcement, the military, all of that stuff.
Oh, I see.
And
I see it every day.
you know, I think a majority of America supports law enforcement and military.
I agree.
I think the people that don't are the ones that are vocal about it, because to the people who do support us, it's normal. Like, why are you going to go out and be vocal about something that's normal?
Right.
And I think that's kind of where we see that. And unfortunately, the media, music, television, movies, they have all sucked into this, like, oh, that's going to bring us views, that's going to bring us listens, that's going to bring us fans. Let's hit on that and bring that to light. And it's just a cycle. It just makes it, a horrible representation of our job, and it puts us in the media's in a way that we're not.
Yeah, and and you bring up movies, and there's 2 movies coming out here pretty soon.
Yep.
Their names I can't remember.
Yeah.
About that exact thing, about this, supposed, and I don't know, I don't know anything about those particular cases, right?
Right.
Both of them are supposedly based off true stories, and I put that in quotations, allegedly.
Yeah. Right.
And obviously there's going to be a spin on it, as with every Hollywood movie, no matter what the what the topic is. But it doesn't help.
Sure.
Right? It doesn't help heal anything, because the image that's being put out is one that's not necessarily true. Now, I'm not as big into conspiracies as my partner Big Bo is, but I will say this. I will say this. I think that this, and you can take it all the way up to the top and look at the last presidential administration. You can take it from there and move it all the way down. This misnomer that has been created by certain organizations and certain political groups is, in my opinion, one of the greatest socially engineered lies in American history.
Yeah.
And it continues to grow, specifically on the internet, right? Because everything you read there is true.
That, yeah, definitely doesn't help.
I feel like most of these people are also flat earthers, but it's frustrating to see. And for instance, I worked a normal shift today, and I worked a traffic crash, and one of the people in the traffic crash had all those stickers on the back of her car. All those, she had the solidarity fist and all of these just, uber liberal, anti everything, stickers. And
Right.
I found it funny how in her moment of crisis, she was so happy to see me. She was so happy that I was there. She was so happy that my partners were there. She was so happy that the firefighters were there. And then her parents get there to pick her up. She was a young college kid. And her parents get there, and the mom couldn't stop shaking my hand and thanking me for what I did and all this kind of stuff, which I'm just doing my job. But to her, it was a big deal.
Right.
And I hope that in that moment, that person that was involved in just a traffic crash, she wasn't hurt. Her car was messed up, but she wasn't hurt. But I hope in those moments that those people, we can change those people's minds. Because we can get on a bull puppet, we can get on a bullhorn and yell and scream just as loud as they do.
Right.
And we're not serving a purpose. I feel like if we keep doing what we're doing, we'll be fine.
Go ahead. Yeah. I mean, I think that a majority of people don't. The people that are vocal about law enforcement typically have zero interaction experience with law enforcement.
Right.
They're getting, like you said, they're getting things from the internet. They're getting things from TV. They're getting things from political candidates, from friends. People who are analyzing situations that law enforcement is handling with no expertise to analyze the situation.
Right.
So it would be like a math teacher teaching you history, and then you believe what the teacher's teaching you, and then you tell somebody else, and then it continues. You're not learning the truth about the what's going on.
No, and then we're playing the telephone game.
Right. Right.
And somebody tells something, by the time it gets around to 900,000 people, it's a different story.
Yeah. But when they do have an interaction, they're like, wait, wow, these people really aren't all that bad. And that's what we see for the most part, at least where I work. People hate us until they realize, oh, I actually needed them for something.
Yeah. Right. Everybody hates the cops till you need the cops. Right. Yep. And then, sometimes they still hate us, and that's fine.
And 100% fine. We'll still do our job how we're supposed to do it.
Still going to do it. And that's I think that's really what defines us and what makes this not just a job. right? I really believe in the fact that it's a calling. I really believe in the fact that it's a brotherhood, it's a family. Now, I don't know how much of this you've experienced at your agency, but at mine, we have several new people. We're almost like a whole new department, and a lot of them are under the age of 30. And their mindset and approach to it is that it is a job. And have you seen any of that in the quote unquote millennial?
Yeah, I mean, I fit in that category. I'm 28.
Yeah, but you're an old soul. It's fine.
That's true. That's true. I think that's a coping mechanism. I think people say, oh, it's just a job. It is what it is. So I go home and it's just, I leave work at work. And, to be honest, I mean, that's kind of impossible in my opinion.
Yeah.
As One Time said in his song, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle.
Right.
And if you're a law enforcement officer that never carries off duty, that
you're an idiot.
Wouldn't help anybody off duty because you don't want to get involved, that wouldn't, do what you would do with a full uniform on off duty if somebody needed immediate help, in my opinion, you're not a sheepdog.
Yeah.
Nobody gets into this job going, well, I get paid horribly and I have horrible health care and work comp sucks. My life's awesome and I'm not going to help anyone off duty. Like, no, you get into this job because you want to do this job. It doesn't matter when.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't know if I think that's everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think as a whole, the people I've worked with typically are in it to win it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't want to, they're not all like that. There are some hard charging motherfuckers out there in that generation. I mean, and there's no doubt about that. And they're both serving in law enforcement. They're serving in the fire service. They're serving in the military. I mean, they're that spirit of wanting to do for others is I don't think it's ever going to go away. It might diminish in some way, or the numbers might be smaller, but I don't think that's ever going to go away.
Right.
When you deal with, so you said you've been fortunate enough to never really deal with like PTSD or anything like that as far as the job goes.
Sure.
Is it difficult for you to, or let me phrase this, can you use enough of your associations that have gone through it to be able to relate to the point where you feel like you can provide a service to those who have? And I say that, or I ask that because listening to this album, it's there, right? I mean, it's a heavy topic, and it's an undertone. And how do you feel as an individual that maybe have dealt with those issues in trying to help those that have? And how do you relate to that?
Well, I think there's several different layers of emotion that come with this job. As far as feeling suicidal, I've never dealt with that.
Right.
Have I dealt with the roller coaster of emotions that comes with the job? Absolutely. Am I irritable sometimes for no reason? Absolutely. And maybe that is obviously that's a part of the PTSD thing. But as far as it interfering with my life, I haven't had that problem.
Yeah.
But yes, I feel like I have spoken with so many law enforcement officers across this country who have been involved in shootings, who've had partners killed. And these are people, I've talked to like one-on-one with them. I think that I've had that happen. I've had enough of my friends go through it. I've had friends take their life.
Mm-hmm.
I get inundated with this stuff because of my following.
Right.
I think that hearing it, seeing it firsthand with people that I know, I live with Deputy Misdemeanor and Deputy Bookham. I mean, my house is nothing but law enforcement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, we all go through those same normal roller coasters of emotions, but as it pertains to those higher level emotions, I think working with HTB has helped me.
Mm-hmm.
I think, doing the comedy has helped because you realize what you're helping. Not only that, the messages that I get from police officers about my music or about our comedy videos, really instills that I'm on the right target. And I got those after Human came out, and I knew like, okay, like I'm onto something. Like the words I'm saying, even though it might not always be my experience 100%, which typically everybody thinks, oh, rap music, it's got to be about his experience. And,
Right.
and that's the case. I feel like I am a vessel to speak for law enforcement throughout this country. And I take that job very seriously and that responsibility very seriously. And after Human came out, when people were messaging me about, hey man, I had a gun in my hand or had a gun in my mouth, and I decided to give your album another listen, and I put the gun down for the night, and I'm able to go another day. Like when you get messages like that, you can't back down from what you're doing, and you know you're on the right path. And I just stuck to that path, and I feel like that path led me down this emboldened, hardened, thin blue line, loving, just in your face, we're going to do what we're here to do type of album.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I live.
I'm getting some feedback on myself. Why am I echoing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, a little echoey.
Okay. I'm not hearing myself now, so that's good.
Oh, okay.
I was hearing myself come back in answering myself. Which I do often. Which of course threw my train of thought off. So what's it been like for you when you hear from these people, and they tell you, man, you've really helped me?
It's real, man. I mean, if you would have told me when I first started doing rap music when I was a teenager that I would make a difference in someone's life
Right.
with my music, I would have called total bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't care how many albums somebody sells. I don't care how many shows somebody does. I don't care how many millions somebody makes. I don't care about any of that. How you define an artist with music is the ability to move people with your art.
Agreed.
And I think, I mean, I don't care if I make a penny from music. The fact that my music is able to motivate and help the people that spend their lives helping this country, you can't even put a price on that, man. You can't put anything on that. That's total hopes and dreams, and it's an absolute blessing that I've been there.
Right.
As far as getting the messages from people, man, it's so empowering for me because that helps me out. This is my coping mechanism with what we go through.
Right.
And man, I've had people who see me in person at Police Week in DC or whatever, and they like lose their mind that they're like meeting me. Like I recall a Police Week 2 years ago. I had a guy who was probably like 6'5", 300 pounds, big, solid, corn-fed dude. And he's like jumping up and down, screaming like, oh my God, it's you, it's you.
That's funny.
Like it's unreal to me because I go out every day and I work the same job that, a million cops in this country do. And my partners don't see me any differently. The public doesn't know who I am. I just do my job. And it's unreal, man. Like, honestly, as you can tell, I'm kind of at a loss for words when I think about it. I'm very, very fortunate. I'm very lucky.
Yeah. And that's the thing about this new album, is that I feel like there's more of a mission behind your voice. I don't know. I get a lot out of your voice in this album versus the first one. There's a certain level of intensity to it.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of that was intentional. But I look at this. I never would have thought when Big Bo and I started this podcast that we would have had those sorts of reactions from people. Right. But we get feedback from people, and not just here. I mean, in Canada,
sure,
in the United Kingdom, and we're downloaded in 48 different countries right now, and I mean, just the feedback we get from these people is incredible. I mean, it's just incredible to know that. And we even had non-law enforcement people send us messages and be like, hey, you guys have, y'all are way different than I ever viewed a police officer being. And I have a whole new view of cops now.
Right.
And that's just it. It really, like you said, you could never make a dime from any of it, and that would be 100% worth it. The emotional and the soul level fulfillment. I'm sorry, you get from that is just, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible, man. And I think as a music artist, that's all that you could ever want, right? Is to affect emotion on people and have people connect with you. And I definitely, with this album, the reason I think you're hearing what you're hearing is, for one, I think I realized that after Human came out. Mm-hmm. I'm putting 120% extra effort into making this album for cops.
Right.
I also think that, my producer that I work with, here you're looking at a dude, I don't know if you've seen pictures of him when I post stuff in the studio, but
yes.
You're looking at a dude with long hair, tatted up,
right.
gauges in his ears, total punk rocker, totally different from how I look. And from the day that he heard Wolf Hunter, the first time I had him mix anything, he has been 100% by my side, down to ride, helped me out as best as possible.
Yeah.
And he was so invested in this album. I think, for one, you have me doing lyrics and recording. It is what it is. I think obviously naturally you get better with the second album.
Sure.
You get more honing in your craft.
Right.
But the passion behind the production of the album as well was absolutely astronomical. And I'm so thankful for him for that, because he put a lot into this. He spent hours making this album how it was. And this last week, we've been texting back and forth, and, he's like, oh, it's almost here, man. It's almost Saturday, and I'm like, I know. He's like, people are going to lose their minds. And now he's even asking me, like, hey, what's it like to be a cop? Like, how would I go about that if I was interested in it? Like, it's like, it's totally crazy. But I think it's albums are not just based on an artist. Like,
right.
Eminem is a great artist, but would he be where he's at without Dr. Dre? Probably not.
Right.
And I think it's a collaborative effort, between all you guys that support me, everybody who listens to me, the social media pages I work with. I've gotten to this point, and I think that's what you're hearing in this album is this emboldened, like I said, hardcore in your face. We are here as law enforcement, and we're not going to back down. Yeah.
Now, as an artist, looking now that you've completed, released, you've listened to your own stuff a million times over. Now that you have a sophomore album, and looking at how well the sophomore album came out. And don't take this the wrong way, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the first album, but as an artist, when you look back at the first album, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, I think with the first album, I was very cautious about the law enforcement realm because I wasn't sure how it was going to be taken.
Yeah.
And I think I did a couple songs that were law enforcement based, but it was kind of toned down, and kind of like Wolf Hunter was probably like the most in your face song, right? Other than Saving a Hero, which Saving a Hero I didn't even think was going to be as big as it was. To me, that was just like, I'll put it on there,
Yeah. See what happens.
And people just lost their mind over it. I think if I had to go back again and redo Human, I think the content I think is good. But it's, to me, like, it sounds flat when I listen to it. Like, I'm like, wow, I have like no emotion. Like, I sound horrible. And I don't know why I think that. I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's not like in my mindset that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
But I think, if you look at artists that do albums over several years, obviously each album is a piece of their, their pie, right? Like what makes them them. And I wouldn't change Human to save the world. I think that album was a great start, and I think that album still is listened to, I think, daily right now. Before this album came out, I was looking at like 2,000 to 3,000 streams a day on Spotify of Human, and obviously people love it. So I did something right, but I don't think I'll ever revert back to that.
Yeah. Well, I think no one's more critical than yourself, right? Yep.
Sure.
Whenever I go through post-production on these episodes, or I decide to download them on Google Podcasts and listen to them, I'm like, who the fuck is this doofus talking? Because to me, I sound like an idiot.
Yeah.
And it's just, but I can at the same time, I can see where the improvement has come over the course of time. As far as structure, delivery, talking, just talking in general. It's crazy how we as police officers talk to people all day long, every day, without even thinking about it. Strangers, complete strangers, in all different levels of emotion, and and etc. And then when you get down to just your own voice, like it's weird. it's a weird thing.
No, you're right. Yeah, and I think I probably drove. If Danny was here with me, he'd probably laugh. But I think I probably drove him freaking nuts because I'd be like, "Hey, dude, I don't like how I said that. Can we redo it?" He's like, "Bro, it's fine. It sounds solid." I'm like, "No. Like, let's do another take." Because I listen to this album like it literally came out today as we're recording this.
Yes.
And I listen to it and I'm like, oh shit, I should have said that way, or I should have done this, or I should have changed that lyric, and like,
right.
You're going to do that as an artist.
Oh, of course.
But you have to realize the common public isn't musicians. So when they're listening to it, they're like, oh man, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah. And they're not looking at it from the same analytical angle that you are. Right. You're automatically defaulting to looking for imperfections because it's your product.
Yep.
Right. And you want it to be perfect.
Yep.
And it's amazing. So what are we looking at for a third album? Have we started that process yet, or we're just gonna let this simmer for a little while and
let this one marinate for a little bit?
Yeah.
I would like to not go as far or as long as I did between albums next time.
Yeah.
I think that I'm gonna have a good wave with this one that I can ride. But I already got some other stuff kind of in the works on some new tracks and maybe some singles and stuff to be released. And as far as the third album, I mean, hell yeah, I'm in it, man. Like, I'm down with it. The more music I put out there, the more people I'm gonna impact and the more cops I'm gonna help. So I definitely am not done. Definitely don't think you've seen the last of it.
Well, I hope not. And I don't think that's the case either. At what point do you? And maybe in your mind it's a fantasy at this point, but I think it's a fair question. At what point does this side of you, does this forensic side of you, take over to the point where you decide to move on from the job? When you look at like Mike the cop, who is he does it part time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you reach that point for you, or are you more than happy to just continue on? And that's maybe a hard question to answer, right? But is there a point where it gets to where you're like, okay, you know what, I can do this full time. I can take this message and I can tour with it. I can make a living out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be a point where that comes along, but at the same time, I started doing my job for a reason. Sure. And I think the people I work with are phenomenal. The partners that I have, the experiences that I have, as much as, like, I've been on patrol for almost 7 years. Right. And as much as you bitch and complain and you get worn down and this and that, all it takes is one call and you're right back in it.
7 years, you're a rookie.
Yes, I am. I know that. But 7 years during a very horrible time, right?
Right, yeah.
But, I think it just takes, and I'm like itching to get out of the street, right, and do something else. But
right, yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if it would be very difficult for me to walk away. Like, I think I would have to do what Mike does and go to like a reserve status or go to something. Like, I don't think I could ever fully not be a cop because that's who I am.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, yeah, I that would be very difficult for me.
Shit, get to my point. You'll quit tomorrow. No.
Yeah.
Boy, if I could. I think I'm joking.
I hear you on that one. I definitely know what you're feeling.
You think I'm joking? So you bring this is an interesting thing. So like, and for the people out there that aren't police officers that are listening to this, because we do have some of those people, we also have a lot of cops that listen to this, and a lot of newer cops, and would you agree? And you kind of referenced it just a minute ago. Would you agree there is a point where you're ready to just like, okay, I'm ready to do something different. Like, I have had enough of this patrol shit, and it's time to do something else.
Yes, and anybody who says otherwise has not reached that point yet.
Yeah. I like, and it's no secret. It's no secret even in my department. I'm like so burned out on patrol, it's not even funny, right? The type of department some of us wear many hats, right? One of those hats I have to wear is still working patrol, still working the roads, still answering calls. The other aspect of that, which I feel like I can take that energy of being burned out on patrol and being just tired of the daily routine of that, is in training. And I really feel like at this point in my career, I've gotten to the point where I feel like my mission has changed from not necessarily not helping the general public, but to helping cops be better cops.
Yeah.
And to being better versions of themselves so that they can go out there and face those challenges that I've already faced. And for me, it's just a repeated record. Occasionally some weird shit pops up, but for the most part, it's the same, right?
Right.
I mean, but being able to train people, whether that be on the range, whether that be in a tactics class or in field training, for me, my mission's really changed into helping other cops. I can kind of see how if you reaching a point with your music where maybe that becomes your full-time mission. I can see that happening.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're in a trajectory where it's possible. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You see the numbers, I don't. But I feel like your message really gets out to people, and obviously the crowd that you're catering to is us, which is greatly appreciated. And that being said, is there a point where forensics music becomes more commercialized or more generalized, where
Stepping away from law enforcement, you mean?
not entirely, obviously, because you're going to have those roots, but I mean stepping away from that theme and trying to become more, I don't know if mainstream's the right word, but appealing to the general masses, let's just say.
I don't think so. I can say that with fairly probably 99% confidence. And the reason for that is not because I wouldn't want to, right? But I think, I don't know. I think that I would not be here without cops that support me.
Right.
And I don't think that I could ever be around the masses who are not law enforcement. And what I mean by that is that if I were to take this more commercialized, how many people realistically would like law enforcement in that realm?
Yeah.
And I just, you know what, I'm here for the blue. And that's, I have the song on the album, Mr. Thin Blue Line.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see myself. Like, I am to the core supporting of law enforcement.
Yeah.
And I don't ever see that changing, especially with, who cares if I have 20,000 fans or 20 million fans? I don't care about that. What I care about is that my music's reaching an audience, and those 20,000 fans have served me and will serve me a whole lot better than those 20 million fans will.
Right. Yeah, and I think that sincerity shows through in the music. I think that's what you're saying. I think people, when they listen to what you have to say, feel that you're telling the truth. It's genuine. I
hope so.
What's coming up for the Hook'em and Book'em duo?
Big things, man.
Yeah.
We're working with Flying Cross. They're sponsoring us now, and Black Rifle Coffee.
Yeah, I was pretty excited for you on that one. That was pretty good deal.
Yeah. So we're doing that kind of stuff. Working, of course, with Officer Daniels, Mike the Cop, humanizing the badge.
You don't need those losers anymore. You just need to move on.
I know. Yeah, man. Just we're gonna keep going with the path, man. And sometimes, like with the job, you get burnt out. Doing the videos and doing this and doing that. But
sure.
We're gonna keep doing what we're doing. There's some things in the works, and maybe doing some show type stuff. Maybe not for the mainstream, but possibly some other things that are on the horizon with some longer content.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and it's just fun, man. Like it's a cool thing. Last night, actually, I was working an event at work, and there was a MMA fighting event. Asked to stay over, worked it for a little bit, just as extra security.
Mm-hmm.
And some security guard comes up to me and is like, "Oh, Deputy Hook'em, what's up? I was wondering when I was going to run into you at one of these things." And I'm like,
"That's funny."
Okay, I'm like, now people in the public are starting to recognize me while I'm working, and
yeah,
it's a fun time, man. And music is one passion. The comedy's another, but in the middle is working with law enforcement. And, it's just getting bigger and better. Every year at Police Week is just insane. Going and doing events is always a fun time, and it's just growing and growing and growing. Obviously not super rapidly because I probably wouldn't be able to keep up with it, but every follower I gain is another step towards my goal, and that goal is just supporting cops, man, and just being out there and doing the comedy that we do and helping cops out. And I know that I wouldn't be here without my followers. What I do is for my followers. What I do is for cops. But at the same time, people don't realize that everything that they do to support me is they're doing it for me.
Right.
And I'm so thankful for that, man. But we're just plugging along, with Bookham and Misdemeanor, and we're enjoying it. We're just there for everybody, and we're going to keep doing what we do.
Yeah. So, are you popping the question to her anytime soon, or is that not something you want to reveal at this point? Is she listening right? Is she in the room right now, like staring at you?
She's not, but she could be later, and she could listen to this later. So
shit.
I'm gonna hold that question to myself.
I'm sorry. I was just kidding. I don't know what I was saying. I've been drinking. I don't know what's going on.
It's okay. It's fine. She'll tell you that she would like me to ask the question, but the answer to that question is going to be hidden.
Hidden. That's smart.
For now. Yeah,
smart strategy right there. Yeah. So Humanizing the Badge, obviously a great organization. You got anything working with them right now? Any upcoming events or anything?
Yeah, they're actually doing an event out in Phoenix for a couple days, a Project Human event in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to be missing it because I'll be at my album release party. Bookham will be there.
Dang.
And they're going to be doing some good stuff. Obviously, everybody who follows it knows what Project Human's all about.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing the Phoenix thing. We did some stuff in Vegas not too long ago. And I think there's a couple other cities they're thinking about going into, but it's kind of a play-by-ear thing. But yeah, the next event they're doing is Phoenix, and that's October 13th through the 16th that they're going to be doing some events in Phoenix.
Awesome. Well, real quick, obviously we've been talking about your new album. Where can everybody find it?
So if you got the Apple Music thing, it's available for streaming on Apple Music. If you buy your music through iTunes, it's on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, Spotify, Pandora, everywhere that's pretty much digital, you can get it. And also if you want a hard copy album, relentlessdefender.com. Relentless Defender is a phenomenal company ran by phenomenal people.
Yes, absolutely.
Big in the Texas law enforcement realm and nationwide for that matter. They're going to be hooking me up. I've been working with Slater. We got some really, really cool things planned for the future, events, videos, all kinds of stuff. So relentlessdefender.com, they're selling the hard copy albums, and if they buy it before October 13th, they're going to get an autographed copy.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
Also, on those sales, 10% of proceeds are going to the Relentless Defender Foundation, which obviously is going to be given back to law enforcement.
Yes. Yeah. For people that don't know, the people over at Relentless Defender are awesome people and make awesome shirts. And I've been a massive fan of them ever since the July 7th deal in Dallas. And all the support that they gave during that time was incredible. Just great group of people. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. Well, brother, I think that's what all I got, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you were able to come back on, man. It's always a joy talking to you, and it's a well received podcast episode. The last one you were on had a good number of downloads, and so I was happy to have you back on.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Like you guys are doing good stuff. You guys are growing, and that's what's important, is being out there and helping people that help others, and that's your guys' mission. You're right on track, and that's all we can ask for. Yeah,
we're faking it pretty good.
Hey, so, you know what? Fake it till you make it, brother.
That's my tagline for my whole law enforcement career. Anyway,
yeah.
Hopefully no defense attorneys listen to that.
I doubt it.
Yeah, no. Yeah. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, man.
Peace out.
Hey, later, guys. Thanks for all the support.
So thanks again to Deputy Hookham Forensic, a.k.a. Check out the new album, Order vs. Chaos. Again, you can find it on iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, pretty much anywhere. And it's pretty cool if you go through Relentless Defender, relentlessdefender.com. You can check them out and definitely support them. They support great causes. They support law enforcement and the military. They're awesome. Buy their shirts. Their shirts rock. you get a physical copy and possibly signed. So that's pretty cool. All right, so some housekeeping. If you want to follow the podcast, you can do that. And here's how. Facebook sucks. Instagram, it's pretty cool. Twitter, overwhelming. But those are the three places you can really follow us. We are now also on Tumblr, which makes no fucking sense. I have no idea why I created a Tumblr account. It's just somewhere else to put the podcast out. But those are the places you can find us. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr. Search Street Warrior Radio Podcast. They'll all come up. Instagram, obviously, is the flagship of our social media. Most of the posts we make on there are shared on those other platforms anyway. But go to either one of those or all of those. Follow us. We'd appreciate it. We like it. Send us messages. Send us pictures. If you've received a Street Warrior Radio Podcast t-shirt, take a picture. Take a selfie. Send it to us. Let us share it. That's exciting for us. So, let's see. You can go to streetwarriorradio.com. Find out more about the podcast. Also, listen to episodes directly off the website. Or you can do what most other people do and download the episodes off iTunes, Google Play / Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and most other places that podcasts are found. It's pretty much everywhere. And if you want to reach us, you can go to streetwarriorradio.com/contact and fill out the contact form page there. If not, then you can contact us directly at info@streetwarriorradio.com. You can contact me, JC, the letters J and C, for those that can't spell that, at streetwarriorradio.com, and the Big Bo, BIGBO, at streetwarriorradio.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, JC_SWR. I don't post a lot, but I'm trying to get better about that. The problem is I just don't know what to post. Like, it's hard. It's easy when it's for the podcast because I can just, think of stuff for the podcast and put it out or whatever. But when it's stuff with me, I mean, nobody wants to see, or at least in my mind, I don't think anybody wants to see me doing, stupid shit. I mean, I could take pictures of my food, I guess. I don't know. Y'all be appalled at that. But other than that, that's it. So I want to give a special shout out to our men and women of the armed forces, those who serve in the United States military, our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, yes, Coast Guard too, National Guard, Air National Guard, you name it. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for the sacrifices that you make for keeping us free so that we can continue to live our lives, and we honor those who have given their lives so that we can live better lives. That's right. Those who have sacrificed in the service of others, it is your responsibility as a citizen of the United States, of this beautiful republic, to live the best life you can because they gave theirs for you. And that goes for the following group: the men and women of our first responders, our law enforcement, our fire service, our paramedics, who go out there every day, to serve, to protect, to help, to rescue, to guide. It's a hard job. It's a hard job. And none of the people in those professions expect you to walk up to them and tell them thank you. Well, if they do, they're conceited. But 99.9% don't. And 99.9% of them, when it happens, they feel awkward and they don't know what to say. But it is appreciated. Truly. For those first responders, remember your oath. Do the right thing. Keep your head up. Things will get better at some point. to the families of our military and our first responders, thank you for everything that you do, the sacrifices that you make, the hardships you must go through, the things you must endure while your loved one is overseas, fighting the good fight, or they're at home, working a shift, working a beat, putting their life on line here. The fear, the anxiety, the joy when they come home. We thank you for your support and what you bring to the table, the role you play in our lives. And to everyone else out there, our fans, our supporters, thank you so much. You're blowing this thing up, and we greatly appreciate it. We can't tell you that enough, how much we appreciate it. We are just enamored with the amount of support and the people that routinely interact with us and lift us up. It makes this incredible journey of this podcast, it makes it just that much more amazing. And everyone else out there that makes the world go round, thank you for what you do. Thank you for keeping the cars running and keeping the lights on and making the clothes and making the food and everything else, everything that's necessary for a free and beautiful society to run. Thank you. You make the service worth it. You make the sacrifice worth it. And with that, Street Warrior Radio is out of service. But before we go, this is my favorite track off Forensic's new album, Order vs. Chaos. Here is Send Me.
Never to stop giving my whole life to this nation. From standing on a stage to standing at a grave, from pinning my badge to watching my brothers laid 6 feet down. Then it's back to the town, running calls all night, work myself through the ground. No rest for the righteous, but who else will go toe to toe with the foe? Let me know so I know. I'll shoot you from the bullets and I'll shoot you from the hate. I'll lead you down the right path away from making that mistake. Charging to the fire, fighting through the flames, willing to be the latest etching on the wall of names. Hear me when I say that person's always been me. Fear not, when that time comes, you can send me.
Appreciate this, man. Just chase away the pain. You kissing me, so unfaithful and clean. On the dark side of the moon, we buried 14. Burnt embers from the altar, straight from Gibraltar, undoubtedly stronger. Hunter, horror, call of Isaiah like a spiritual seance. In the heart of the chaos, drop daddy with a crown, yeah. I'm not the hero, I just chose to take the call. Cause evil wins when good is nothing at all. With the fury of a hurricane, a runaway train, trying to chase away the pain, let peace forever reign. Deploy me, yeah. Right to the darkness with courage incarnate, with protection like a garment. Angelic sergeant, light bear a torch. Rack the rifle back, yeah, jump off the porch. Send me, you can send me to war. Eyes wide open, yeah, I'm way offshore.
I'm part of a chosen few. I'm willing to stand up, willing to fight back. I'm willing to give my life if you're under attack. And I don't ask for much, just know that I'm there, ready to smash fear in its face when you're scared. I still bleed red, same brain in my head. And this vest will only take so much lead before I